Did you know that the United States almost had a different national bird? Yes, you heard that right. Get ready for a whirlwind journey through the entire history of the United States in just one documentary. Today, we're diving deep into over 200 years of events that have shaped the nation we know today. The history of the lands that became the United States began with the arrival of the first people in the Americas around 15,000 BC. Numerous indigenous cultures formed, and many saw transformations in the 16th century, away from more densely populated lifestyles and towards reorganized polities elsewhere. European colonization of the Americas began in the late 15th century. Although most colonies in what would later become the United States were settled after the year 1600. Christopher Columbus's 1492 voyage, funded by Spain, marked the beginning of European interest in the Americas. However, it was not until the early 17th century that the English established their first permanent settlement. Founded by the London Company, Jamestown was the first permanent English settlement. The colony struggled initially, suffering from famine, disease, and conflict with indigenous tribes, but eventually found economic success through tobacco cultivation. Following Jamestown, more colonies were established along the Atlantic coast, each with distinct economic, social, and political structures. These included Puritan Massachusetts Bay, Quaker Pennsylvania, and debtors Havenergia. Colonial life was marked by hard work and self-reliance. While New England colonies focused on shipbuilding and commerce, the southern colonies depended heavily on agriculture and slave labor. Middle colonies were the most diverse, both ethnically and religiously. As colonies prospered, Britain imposed various laws and taxes to maintain control and benefit from colonial wealth, often leading to unrest and resentment among colonists. Post the French and Indian War, Britain sought to tax the colonies to pay for the war debts, leading to widespread protests. The Stamp Act of 1765 spurred the slogan, "No taxation without representation," uniting various colonies in opposition to British interference. Escalating tensions led to the Boston Massacre, and later the Boston Tea Party in 1773, which saw colonists disguised as Mohawk Indians dumping British tea into Boston Harbor as a protest against taxes. In 1776 in Philadelphia, the Second Continental Congress declared the independence of the colonies as the United States of America. Led by General George Washington, it won the Revolutionary War. The Paris Peace Treaty of 1783 established the borders of the new sovereign state. The Articles of Confederation established a central government, but it was ineffectual at providing stability, as it could not collect taxes and had no executive officer. Leaders convened to draft the U.S. Constitution in 1787, establishing a federal government with checks and balances. To address concerns about individual liberties, the first 10 amendments, known as the Bill of Rights, were ratified in 1791, guaranteeing fundamental rights like freedom of speech and due process. Encouraged by the notion of manifest destiny, the United States expanded to the Pacific coast. While the nation was large in terms of area, its population in 1790 was only 4 million. Westward expansion was driven by a quest for inexpensive land for yeoman farmers and slave owners. The expansion of slavery was increasingly controversial and fueled political and constitutional battles, which were resolved by compromises. Slavery was abolished in all states north of the Mason-Dixon line by 1804, but states in the South continued the institution to support the kinds of large-scale agriculture that dominated the Southern economy. The Southern economy became heavily dependent on slavery, particularly in the cultivation of cotton. This institution was increasingly defended by Southerners against Northern abolitionist movements. Legislative attempts to balance free and slave states, such as the Missouri Compromise, 1820, and the Compromise of 1850, temporarily reduced tensions but failed to resolve the underlying issues. These events in the late 1850s galvanized public opinion in both the North and South, highlighting the deep divisions over slavery. Following the election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860, the Civil War began as the Southern states seceded from the Union to form their own pro-slavery country, the Confederate States of America. The war was brutal, and the deadliest conflict in American history. The defeat of the Confederates in 1865 led to the abolition of slavery. In the Reconstruction era following the war, legal and voting rights were extended to freed male slaves. The national government emerged much stronger and gained an explicit duty to protect individual rights. However, when white Southern Democrats regained their political power in the South in 1877, often by paramilitary suppression of voting, they passed Jim Crow laws to maintain white supremacy, as well as new state constitutions that legalized discrimination based on race and prevented most African Americans from participating in public life. The United States became the world's leading industrial power at the turn of the 20th century, due to an outburst of entrepreneurship and industrialization by abundant natural resources and the arrival of millions of immigrant workers and farmers. A national railroad network was completed, and large-scale mines and factories were established. Mass dissatisfaction with corruption, inefficiency, and traditional politics stimulated the progressive movement from the 1890s to the 1920s, leading to reforms including the federal income tax, direct election of senators, granting of citizenship to many indigenous people, alcohol prohibition, and women's suffrage. Major industries included steel, oil, and electricity. Influential figures like Andrew Carnegie in steel, John D. Rockefeller in oil, and inventors like Thomas Edison played pivotal roles. Cities grew exponentially as immigrants from Europe and migrants from rural America sought jobs in urban factories. This era saw the rise of the American metropolis, complete with challenges related to overcrowding, sanitation, and labor rights. As factories proliferated, so did labor unrest. The harsh conditions led to the formation of labor unions and significant strikes, such as the Haymarket Riot and the Pullman Strike, highlighting the growing class tensions. Initially neutral, the U.S. entered World War I in 1917. The American Expeditionary Forces helped turn the tide in favor of the Allies. The war effort spurred industrial growth and technological advancement, but also led to stringent wartime measures like the Espionage and Sedition Acts. Post-war America experienced economic prosperity driven by consumerism and technological advances like the automobile and radio. However, this prosperity masked underlying economic weaknesses. The stock market crash of 1929 led to the Great Depression, devastating the global and American economy. Unemployment soared, leading to widespread poverty and prompting significant government intervention under Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal. The New Deal defined modern American liberalism. Following the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, the United States entered World War II and financed the Allied war effort and helped defeat Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy in the European theater. Its involvement culminated in using newly invented American nuclear weapons on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to defeat Imperial Japan in the Pacific War. The United States and the Soviet Union emerged as rival superpowers in the aftermath of World War II. During the Cold War, the two countries confronted each other indirectly in the arms race, the space race, propaganda campaigns, and proxy wars. In the 1960s, in large part due to the strength of the civil rights movement, another wave of social reforms was enacted, which enforced the constitutional rights of voting and freedom of movement to African Americans. In the 1980s, Ronald Reagan's presidency realigned American politics towards reductions in taxes and regulations. The Cold War ended when the Soviet Union was dissolved in 1991, leaving the United States as the world's sole superpower. Foreign policy after the Cold War has often focused on many conflicts in the Middle East, especially after the September 11th attacks in 2001. The attacks changed the national security landscape, leading to the Afghanistan and Iraq wars and ongoing global efforts against terrorism. Continued advancements in technology reshaped media, politics, and social interactions, with the rise of social media platforms becoming central to daily life. Early in the 21st century, the United States experienced the Great Recession and the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic had profound impacts on global health, the economy, and daily life, leading to massive shifts in work, education, and public policy. As environmental concerns grow, the US faces both challenges and opportunities in leading global efforts to address climate change. America continues to grapple with its identity and role on the global stage as it faces new challenges and opportunities in a rapidly changing world. From the early days of rebellion and revolution to the dynamic strides in rights and technology, the history of the United States is a story of relentless pursuit and profound change. But what lessons can we draw from this great experiment in democracy and freedom? How do we apply the values of our forebears to today's challenges? We stand on the shoulders of giants, but where will we guide their vision into the future? Share your thoughts, your questions, and your stories. Let's expand this dialogue beyond the echoes of history. Don't forget to subscribe for more thought-provoking content and click the bell icon so you never miss a conversation. Share this video to keep the dialogue alive, and comment below with your insights into America's past and your hopes for its future. Thank you for exploring the intricate tapestry of American history with us today. We're excited to see how you'll help weave the next chapter. Stay curious, stay informed, and above all, stay engaged.